Today we are going to be talking about...
artificial intelligence.
Is it capable of having consciousness? Will it be taking over the world? Is it evil, or could it ever become evil? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Deep Speak, where we ask the questions to the answers of the universe. Follow our crazy trains of thought as we start on one topic and end up
in a whole other dimension.
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, AI, robots, robotics. We always thought that in the past that AI was all automatically going to be these robots. But now we're seeing that AI is like in our hands every day.
Yeah.
Algorithms, making decisions that we've programmed it to do or maybe not programmed it to do. This is an incredibly fascinating and interesting topic to me, and it is equally as scary and doomsday-ish.
Can you break it down more for people? Like how we see it already right here and now? Like what, aside from in our phones, like how is it actually used right now? Like different ways.
Oh, I don't even think we know all the different ways. I mean,
right.
I've been kind of out of that loop for a while. So I probably have to do some more research into it. I mean, we just want to talk more about conceptually what it is and what it will be and what it can do and could it be conscious and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, the technology is incredible right now.
That is one of the ways that we see it right now is in our phones and through like social media algorithms is one basic way that they're using it to filter,
censor
information. Yep.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say the AI is evil, right, by doing that, but it's being programmed to do that by humans.
Oh, right.
So could we see more of that type of thing in the future, do you think? Where a robot or something larger would be used to censor humans?
Oh, of course. Big Brother type thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is a tool like anything else, and we always say this: if any tool can be used for good or evil, depending on who's wielding it, right? Wielding it.
Do you think the builders of AI are usually on the evil side,
like Hanson Robotics and no, I don't think they are. I think they're just curious, and like me, we're both really curious, and I think curiosity can kill the cat. So we have to be careful. We have to be very, very careful. And I think we have to do more like simulated projections of if this were to happen, then these things could possibly happen. It's one of my favorite Sesame Street lessons that I learned a long, long time ago was that little girl who she was holding, I think this was a lesson every kid should have when Sesame Street was good, where she was holding the balloon and her little friend was up ahead and he was on a skateboard, and she would sit there and she'd contemplate. I thought this really created a good sense of like what would happen and how to be conscious and how to be compassionate and how to critically think when Sesame Street was doing that versus being woke like it is now. And she would say like, well, what happened if I walked up to Billy and popped this balloon? And then she imagined that he would get scared, the skateboard would go off, he would fall down, he would get severely hurt. And so like then she made her decisions based on that. And I know that's a really silly example, but I think that's something that we have to do when it comes to, we have to think ahead. We have to be consciously aware of what possible things can go wrong. When they split the atom, you know, well, that was for bad. I mean, it was created in an effort to hurt, you know. But I think in CERN is the same thing, where we have the Large Hadron Collider, where we're smashing particles together, and we have no idea. We're just doing it, and we don't know really we're doing it so that we can figure out what's happening, and we could have already caused a lot of damage, and we don't even know. Maybe it tore a tore the veil between this reality and another reality, and all
Yeah.
this evil came in, and now Biden's president or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
No, we don't
That's
know.
a really reckless way of playing around with nature
Yeah.
itself and the fabric of reality.
Right. Let's smash particles together and see them, like the things that have come out of that, to see like particles popping in and then out of
Yeah.
our existence.
Right.
While we did that, it was like, okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what is the benefit for humanity of any of these things, I don't know.
Because we're so curious.
I know.
We're such curious creatures. And I can't hate on that because I'm the same way. I'm so curious and it drives me crazy. But that's what happened with Jurassic Park. Right? Like
It's
they
the
were
basis
so
of any
curious.
good sci-fi movie
Is
or
that
novel,
curiosity, right? Exploring space.
Let's just see what happens.
Let's see what happens when we shift time, space, and reality. Ugh. And while we're at it, have you liked the button yet? Have you looked at that like button? Have you seen it? Have you hit it? Have you smacked it? Hit the like button right now. How about that?
That is our
Let's do it together.
AI.
All together. 1, 2, 3. Like, subscribe. And I think my friend would love this podcast. Share. Yeah.
So right away, what do you think that? Do you personally think that AI can have its own consciousness, or might in the future if it doesn't already?
I'm gonna ask you first. You asked me the last question. Now you answer this one.
I say no.
I think it's possible, depending on what your definition of consciousness is.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going back. We always go back to consciousness.
It all comes down. When we deep speak, we speak about
consciousness because we're speaking consciousness.
It's the biggest mystery of all.
So I guess that depends on what your definition of consciousness would be. Right. If it's the materialist side of things, saying that consciousness originates in our brain and that our brain is the regulatory interface of our bodies, then you could say that an AI would be conscious or self-aware and sentient in some way,
right? If you use that definition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then if you look at consciousness as something like more of an external, outside of our body source of information, which is where I lean, then we get into a different section of, on this earth right now, what is conscious and what isn't is interesting. Or are people unified at all? Are there some people that are not conscious in that definition at all? Like a non-player character, becoming more commonly used, that term.
And how is consciousness and the soul connected?
Right.
Some people think that they're not even connected. Yeah. Some people think that you can be conscious without having a soul. And other people think that consciousness is your soul.
Yeah.
Because it exists outside of your body.
Yeah.
So there's so many different definitions that's why I think, that's one of the biggest debates amongst the entire scientific, religious, and philosophical areas or professionals, experts. They all debate that.
Yeah, definitely.
And they all debate it from different terms and different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that what I forgot to mention this before to you, but like you know about the Turing test?
Yes. If you want to bring that up.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. So some people say, I'll just read the Wikipedia here. So the Turing test, originally called the imitation game by Alan Turing in 1950, is a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be something that we would use to determine whether or not AI is considered conscious or close to consciousness, would be Turing, the imitation game or Turing test. Turing proposed that a human evaluator would judge natural language conversations between a human and a machine designed to generate human-like responses. The evaluator would be aware that one of the two partners in the conversation is a machine, and all participants would be separated from one another. The conversation would be limited to a text-only channel, such as a computer keyboard and screen, so the result would not depend on the machine's ability to render words as speech. If the evaluator cannot reliably tell the machine from the human, the machine is said to have passed the test.
Mm-hmm.
So the test results do not depend on the machine's ability to give correct answers to the questions, only how closely its answers resemble those of a human would give. And there's a really cool video online, and I wonder if I can find that again. The AI, Vladimir, remember? Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Voldemort? Oh, it was Voldemort? I don't remember. But they named it two different. There was like a woman voiced AI and a male voiced AI.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having it was two computers set up together, and they were having a conversation with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept going back and forth about, like, are you a human? No, I'm a ninja. Are you a ninja?
Yeah.
I'm a boy.
Yeah.
What is the questions they kept going back to, like, what are you? I'm a human. You're not a human. You're a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kept having this conversation. Wasn't it like 3-4 hours long? And we just watched the whole thing. Because it was so fascinating to see how they would talk to each other.
Yeah.
And they kept going in this loop about trying to figure out, are you a human? Am I a human?
Yeah.
What is a human?
Yeah.
What's consciousness? And what is the purpose of life?
Yeah.
And then they would come back
But then
to,
they
like,
would pull in
information from movies and other stuff. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that the answer was 42. But that was really interesting. You put that in one of your songs. I think the name of your song is The Question to the Answers, right? It's one of my favorite one of my favorite songs. If you want to listen to Josh's music, it's G.I. whatever on all
G.I.
whatever. So, yeah, that's interesting that they would, like, try to contemplate what life is. And I feel like that would be part of it, would be, without any programming, kind of coming up with their own determination as to what life is, and then move forward with that.
I think one of the conclusions we came to listening that was that AI, at least at this point, doesn't have much memory. It was always trying to learn what
they would ask the same questions over and over again.
Yeah. And they would come to different conclusions once in a while, at least what appeared to be conclusions to us.
Yeah.
But then they would come back around and ask the same questions again.
And I think this whole thing was recorded several years ago, though.
Yeah.
But it was also that it was not that it didn't also have good memory, but it was also very primitive.
Yeah.
Because they would say things like, I think I love you. I want to marry you.
Right.
You don't want to marry me. You don't even know me. And then it would be like, I hate you. I hate you too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be around you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you either.
Yeah.
And it was so weird. It was so, like, strange.
Childlike.
It was very childlike. It was like a 3-year-old, maybe like a 4-year-old having a conversation with another 4-year-old in the sandbox.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure it's gotten further since then.
Did you answer my... Oh, yeah, you did answer my question. You do think that AI could become self-aware?
I do, because I think that it's hard. Here's the thing is, you can't tell someone else whether or not they are self-aware, because it's a self-perception. So I don't...
Yeah.
We can't really determine that for anyone else but our own self.
I just think we... project a lot of our...
We anthropomorphize everything?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This comes into the whole, like, animals and pets thing.
Right.
Like, how can you judge how an animal is conscious or not,
Right.
Now, is that... me and you have talked about this so much, but is that the ability to override your natural instincts? I think that's one of the most important factors in judging what is conscious or not.
Being able to make a decision that goes against your programming, either via your DNA, which acts like a program in humans, or on all of nature, right? Or a program in a computer. So if consciousness is defined as the ability to go against what you've been programmed to do, so you are super hungry and food is put in front of you and you decide not to eat that, even though you really, really want it and your body's craving, you're salivating, right? All of your program inside of you is saying, do this, and you decide not to. That seems like consciousness to me. And the more primitive you are, the less capable or the less conscious you are or capable you are of making those decisions that go against it. So then you would be more prone to like sins of the flesh, stepping outside your marriage or not keeping commitments to other people, overindulgence in food, alcohol, addictions, like all these things that are in the Bible would be considered sins or sins of the flesh would be things that are pulling you as your program is pulling you. And maybe like you were I think that's what you were saying earlier when we have our conversation outside of the podcast was that maybe that is what the Bible is trying to teach, or even all religions are trying to teach, is not necessarily getting to heaven as a place to go when you die, but ascending or transcending or ascending to a place where you have overcome your programming, stepped outside of it, and are able to move against the sins of the flesh or the sins of what your program is pulling you to do, right?
Yeah.
And that would be full, what do you call it? Enlightenment.
Yeah. Yeah. Resisting like entropy, destruction,
right?
Stuff like that, and love in the definition of creation and timelessness or multidimensional levels. I look at love as being some of those things which we never hear really, but I think those are parts of love. If you can extend your consciousness beyond, like somehow in a multidimensional way, like extending beyond Earth. That's what I'm saying.
Well, how does that relate to love?
Because I think that's part of love, personally. Is existing on multiple levels.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I personally
love is a very high vibration.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
it's the highest.
Thank you. I think that like entropy and what we would call evil and all these lower programs are lower density programs that exist on the Earth plane or whatever we would call this where we are.
Right.
That's a different subject, but
right. Yeah, everything in this reality is leading to death. It's leading to destruction. Everything is pulling us to die. Everything you do, think about this, every day is an effort to live. It's to survive. When you eat, when you breathe, when you drink, when you reproduce, like all of that is to try to live.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything, you die.
Yeah.
Like it's just everything's decaying and rotting and breaking down, and that's what this reality does.
Right.
It's full on entropy. The natural way is to die.
Yeah, and I was just thinking this is sort of the ending of Her, that good AI movie.
I was thinking about that movie too. That was seemed so the trailers did not do that movie justice, because that was actually a really good representation of how quickly AI can move into something else.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Like it basically transcends and it disappears from this reality is what happened with the AI basically.
Right.
You would have no idea that's how it ends,
Right.
Basically, but that's kind of what I'm talking about.
I think that was really cool. That was really interesting.
So, do you think that because I feel like humans become detached, and it's easy for them to make certain judgments until it becomes personal. So it's easy for people to dismiss animals as not being very conscious, not important, blah, 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 whatever, when they're in nature. But when you have a pet, you feel differently about your pet. So is your pet more conscious because it has a connection with you, or are we projecting that consciousness, or both? What do you think? Like a human and a dog?
It seems like something changes when an animal becomes a pet versus it being out in the wild.
Right. Yeah.
And I wonder if that would be the same thing for humans. I don't know.
So aside from like loyalty and
If we became
repetition
pets.
and a relationship of feeding and stuff like
Right.
meeting basic needs, what about the other needs of what do they call them? Like
Companions?
yeah, like companion pets. What are they called? They call them like a
Service dog.
security, not just a service dog, but like a emotional support animal.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how is it that some animals seem to have the ability to emotionally support a human, or is it simply the human's projection, or is it both? Like,
Yeah.
does a human project that relationship?
No, the dog can, or the animal can literally sense when your emotions have changed.
Right.
But that might be just a vibrational thing. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
a soul thing, because emotions have vibration.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure that they can pick up on things more than what we know of.
So whether or not
measure
that's a soul,
what we can measure.
Right. Whether or not that's a soul thing might be, let's say it's a different question, but is it a consciousness thing then? Is consciousness also vibration? Like, even if it's just your brain emitting a certain frequency of emotion, and that dog can sense that, is that consciousness? Or is that just chemical process? Like, what are you saying? What is the emotion that the dog's picking up on?
Oh, when somebody starts to feel anxious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that consciousness?
I think it's coming out of I think it comes from, personally, I think the chakra thing is a real thing. And I think people who deny that or say that it's like some wooey hooey thing is blind and not open-minded.
Yeah.
And I also think people who say that it's like evil or bad or against God are absolutely blinded also.
Right.
Blinded by their own belief systems that they don't want to look into it any deeper because there's so much truth to it.
Right.
Scientifically.
Electromagnetically, our bodies are electrical impulses and they create vibration. Yeah.
Now, they may not relate
Resonance,
exactly the way that the Eastern world would say that it does in a chakra way, but I think that we do emit emotions from different areas of our bodies. And I think that it's fairly similar. Like, I do think that like our lower chakras are the heavier, darker, denser, and then as you rise up, like your chest area is where your heart chakra is, obviously, and that is bigger and it's more vibrant, and I think you can sense that from people. I think people can sense people's chakras or their vibrations all the time, and I think animals are just really in tune to it. Just because we can't hear a noise, like because you have that hearing loss in one of your ears or both of them, I can hear the baby birds chirping on our porch. They're like 2 feet away from you and you can't hear them. Doesn't mean it's not happening.
Nope, it's not happening.
Right? So just because we can't...
I can't hear it, it's not happening.
We can't visually measure or scientifically prove that we're capable of emitting pulses outside of or from our bodies or from our emotions, which I do think we can. I think that it's being suppressed by the scientific world, personally. Doesn't mean that animals can't sense it.
True.
I mean, they can pick up on electromagnetic to fly to certain areas to figure out where they're going to go.
Yeah.
They're not like, I'm going to go to Wisconsin. Like, no, they're following the lines that we can't see.
That we can't see at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
lots of studies have been done on flocks of birds
migration.
And how they not just migrate, but how they fly in intricate patterns. You ever seen a huge
think about that. I love that.
Whatever they're called, a gathering of birds where they like sway and morph and they're not going anywhere, but there's a lot of studies out there that show that it's following.
How are they communicating with each other?
Yeah.
Hello.
Right. They're not all verbally telling each other to go left, go right. Like, they're all doing it.
They're following the EMFs, but they're also communicating with each other, and they're not doing it by sound. Nothing that we can hear or see. So they're vibrationally connecting to each other to move in in a pattern.
The other thing along these realms that you're saying is not only being suppressed, but just there's a lot of ignorance around is that the heart emits high EMFs higher than the brain.
Right.
We always focus on the brain as being this supreme part of our body, which it
Right.
is, it
No,
controls
it's just
the
a tool.
nervous system and this and that. But,
Uh-huh.
but I should say regulates. It doesn't necessarily control it, but it's intricate. You need the brain for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But the heart actually emits much further electromagnetic radiation outward from the body than the brain does. And that makes you ask the question too, like, how does our heart even start beating? Isn't that the most interesting thing?
Well, is it our heart you're saying, or is it our chest cavity?
Our heart and everything around it biologically.
Oh.
So maybe that's our chest
even...
cavity. I don't know, but
yeah.
But yeah, if you look at research this, the human body is mostly centered around the heart.
Right, which
electromagnetically.
Yeah. There's something I read a long time ago too about there being another heart in our gut.
I don't know about that, but
not that it's a literal heart organ, but that it senses and it like, I don't know how to describe it.
Electro.
That's why we get the gut feeling, because there's a way to actually feel through your gut than down in your stomach, your pit of your stomach, when you feel like, oh my God, I feel so scared, and that's down in the pit. You physically feel that in the pit of your stomach, or in your stomach, down lower abdomen.
I've researched that too, because I'm really intrigued why everyone has that to some degree. I've heard that.
Maybe that's another brain. I can't remember. It was there's another intelligent piece besides our head and our heart that's down in our...
I read overly scientific pieces that tried to explain that away. It was saying that there's a large concentration of nerves down there, and that's why you feel things more in your gut, is that there's a high concentration of nerves, so you can feel more.
So blood flows to that area or away from that area when you're feeling sad or scared or something?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
interesting.
know. I haven't read it in a while. I think there's some truth to that. There's definitely a lot of nerves down there for sure, which I think is what can cause certain illnesses too.
Yeah. And not to mention all the bacteria in your...
And there's tons of bacteria. Yeah, it's unbelievably... how
diverse community in our stomachs.
I had no idea until I was diagnosed with what I was diagnosed with 20 years ago. But anyway, I don't know. I think there's some truth to that, but there could be some other form of heart center or something down there. You know. But that comes full circle again. Do you think that we can program AI to feel that? How would it?
I think you could.
Yeah.
Because if it's just a bunch of nerves and sensations, wouldn't it just be programming it in there?
I don't know.
I know. It's so hard.
You bring up the point of you can't prove or disprove someone else's consciousness necessarily. Right. You can run the Turing test, so it's just how old now.
Right.
I think there's a lot of AI that has beat that test, so to speak. There's indistinguishable between human and robot now, and AI.
Yeah, levels of awareness.
That's been beat for a long time, and now there's new tests. And I can't think of any offhand, but there's new tests of playing around with this measurement too.
Yeah. But I can we go back to the whole wild versus pet thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something different. There's something in communication, energetic communication with that, where you can telepathically connect with your dog. They've done very extensive research and beautiful science behind being able to watch pets and how they're connected to their humans, by doing things like somebody is monitoring somebody who's at a store, who's shopping around, and monitoring their pet on camera at the same time. And as soon as the person makes a decision to go home, the pet will get up and go over to the door and wait every single time, or go to the window or whatever. Every single time it knows when its humans coming home. And there's something like that right there proves mental telepathy in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know how people can be like, that's evil or that's not real. It is real. There's
Right.
no other explanation for why your dog, as soon as you make a decision to go home, knows you're coming home. Like, that's crazy.
Right.
But then when you see pets or animals out in the wild, they just seem so, like, I feel like I always use the word primitive, like they're on the basic program. Like, I feel like pets have been upgraded to have more of a ability to connect with humans on an emotional level, but in the wild I don't know that they've ever learned that, and so it seems like they're less conscious. So maybe consciousness is more along that definition, the ability to connect with something on an emotional level.
That's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we neglect to pay attention to that, don't we?
Right.
Connections. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about consciousness being that
The
definition
ability to connect.
on an emotional level.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because like you have things in nature in the wild that do things on instinct. Like we have a Carolina wren family that made a nest on our back porch in a little flower pot, and it laid some eggs, and that it's natural. It knew how. No one taught it. It knew instinctually where to build, how to build, what to put into it, how to create it exactly the way every other Carolina wren does. And then it laid its egg in it, laid 5 eggs. And then when it knew to sit on it, nobody talks, it didn't have an instruction manual. These were all instincts. And then it like knew when they hatched to now come and bring it food. And then and then we anthropomorphized it, and we were like, oh, look at their loving their little babies. And all of a sudden one day they took a baby and threw it out of the nest right in front of us onto the ground because it was probably sick or diseased or dying or something. And it was like, this one doesn't work. Flip.
To feed,
like,
right?
Like, no, it's like, there's no, I don't think there's love. I don't think those birds are like, I love my babies and my nest and my husband who shares the responsibilities with bringing food to the children. There's no consciousness there.
Yeah.
And there's no love.
Right.
It's just instinct. I have to take care of my kids because that's what my instincts tell me to do.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting to me. I think that was the biggest lesson that I've learned about nature, is that nature in the wild just doesn't give a fuck about anything else.
Yeah.
It's all pure running on instinct. It's, dare I say, low-level programming?
Yeah, I think
Basic programming.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why it feels lonely to people that have these other senses of whatever soul or conscious experience like I've experienced. Like, it just feels lonely here because it is a kind of a low program. It has the ability, but it does seem like that.
Yeah, but you come here and you're like, oh my God, the world is ruthless.
Because there's that inability to emotionally or somehow something above connect with someone other than just physicality. It does feel that way a lot in this realm,
Especially us deep speakers and all of our fans. We all are the same way. We're very empathic group of people, meaning we're able to pick up on other people's emotions. We feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
We can sense what other people are thinking and feeling. Yeah. Whether we want to or not. When you walk into an airport, you get overwhelmed with everybody's emotions.
Yeah.
Like it's like everyone's screaming at you at once.
It's so interesting because no one ever taught us stuff like this, know, and then you go through the phase of thinking maybe you're the only one or you're crazy or something like that.
You're very subject to depression and severe anxiety, right? All of these sort of very detrimental emotional things, and people think you're crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of empaths, a lot of people who have severe anxiety disorders are really just extreme. Like, they have a lot of antennas and they're picking up on all kinds of crap and they don't know it, and they don't know how to determine they don't know what it is. They don't know what's happening. They don't know how to read it, and they don't know how to like turn it off or block it or to tune into only what you want to tune into. Like that's, I think, one of the most important pieces of human evolution is that we need to learn that. We need to teach each other that, and not on a wooey hooey weird basis. Not like the spirit guides have told me that you must blah blah blah. No. This is a real thing. Like, how do you deal with your emotions, and how do you deal with other people's emotions, and how do you deal with feeling other people's emotions?
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's literally the basis of your experience. It should be taught and should be acknowledged.
And that's what we're putting together a whole program, a whole lesson, all these sort of things to help teach people this stuff in our Deep Speak members only VIP club.
Yes.
On our group, deepspeakpodcast.com. And while we're at it, have you liked the button yet? Have you looked at that like button? Have you seen it? Have you hit it? Have you smacked it? Hit the like button right now. How about that?
That is our
Let's do it together.
AI.
All together. 1, 2, 3. Like, subscribe. And I think my friend would love this podcast. Share.
Continuing on this like consciousness and emotional awareness versus people that are not, or don't seem to be in some way,
or have blocked it,
A lot
of times antidepressants block it too.
Yes. So speaking of antidepressants,
why does that make you laugh?
Many people, because that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay. In the 90s, I was a teenager and I tried them out and I didn't like them. And then after I graduated high school, I'm like, I'll give it another shot, because I was starting to feel, depressed again. And a lot of it was seasonal for me,
Yeah.
So anyway, we were going into fall or whatever, and to do that, you have to meet with a psychologist, right? Determine that that you're okay to go for it or whatever. And I hated it. I don't know what. I'm not going to say what kind it was. I don't even remember. But I stopped taking them because I felt numb to everything.
It does. It can definitely numb people.
And then I also had started, having I had a few psychedelic experiences, at that point, which pried open my third eye or whatever you want to call it. And started realizing that I was feeling these things and sensing things like this that we're talking about. And I had this fun with this psychologist who just seemed to be one of these shallow block types, whatever you want to call him, that he had no awareness of anything I was talking about. So I started messing with him because I was like playing this character. He almost, his energy almost seemed like frightened, or frightened for me. I was just like, yeah, I've done, LSD and this and that. And I stopped taking my antidepressants, and it was like his eyes just kept getting wider. And he's like, like that's not good, right? And
Mr. Anderson.
He was like, it was just me and him in this office room.
Mr. Anderson, you must take your medication.
Totally felt like that.
Blue pills are very important to keep you in this reality.
Right. It is totally a Matrix moment, and I forget about that. But I was just having fun messing with this guy, because he seemed so concerned about, my health and everything. And looking back at that, I'm like, that guy, I wonder whatever happened to him. Did he ever realize that does he have emotions? Did he ever, did his life fall apart when he suddenly started to feel things, whether or not it was a psychedelic awakening or if it was like some other spiritual awakening when his mom died or something? Like, people that seem to be non-player characters or they block all of this, sometimes you wonder whatever happened to them,
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I think that there are just people who aren't.
Yeah.
That they don't have that ability
to
connect emotionally. And we talk about that. I have some of our special VIP bonus tracks in the VIP club, our deepspeakpodcast.com members only club, about that specifically, about empaths, about narcissists, about being able to connect and some people not being able to at all, and also about serial killers and how some of them are very empathic and some of them are not at all.
Yeah.
Or sociopaths. So let's get back to AI.
Yeah. So If humans operate on a similar system and we design AI, do you think AI can become evil on its own?
Yeah, that's so, like, can it evolve
Yeah.
evil? Well, then we have to define, first of all, we have to define consciousness, and then we have to define
Define
evil.
evil,
What is
right.
evil? Was that bird who took the baby, who was still alive, out of the nest and threw it to the ground, and it did it 3 times because you picked it up, put it back in, and then it was like, chucked it out again.
Yep.
And then the last time you put it in, and then the last time it was
Yeah.
dead
Yep.
because it had now been thrown to the ground 3 times by a ruthless, evil Carolina wren who only cared about itself and took their other privileged children were more of a priority. So, like, was that evil? When a lion kills a gazelle, is it evil? Now, does evil mean doing something against your consciousness that harms somebody else? So, like, it gets so this gets so tricky because, like, then would serial killers be considered evil?
Right.
If they feel like their programming is telling them to kill, or
Right.
the voices in their head, or their gut instinct is saying I must kill people,
Right.
or kill something, like, is that evil? Or is it programming?
Again, it almost
is it
seems like
a fucked up program
right. It almost
in their
seems
head?
like the question of if this is a simulation. Come back to that real quick. Like, that there's this program where as long as you're okay with something, there seems to be no resistance, and it seems to just happen. That it's like a program in itself.
Yeah.
So if you smoke and you feel guilty about it, are you more likely to get sick from it?
Right. Yeah.
Or if you're okay with it and you're having fun and your body chemistry changes based on your belief system and you're okay with it, nothing ever happens. You hurt someone and you're okay with it. Is that okay? Like, I don't know.
It gets so hard. It gets so difficult to try to understand what it is, because, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat animals because I don't feel like I would. If I don't have to, why would I kill another living creature? And don't give me the stupid plants are alive thing too, because I'm just gonna kick you. Seriously,
that's what I would always say.
I know, it annoys the fuck out of me. It's like, okay, is the difference between a bean and a dog? Okay, there's a difference. Like, there's a difference in consciousness. But it is, like, especially if you want to go back to being able to make a decision, like, a plant can't really make a decision. There is communication. They've actually found, I'm pretty sure, communication between the root systems of trees to be able to communicate with other trees in the same vicinity or in the same forest or whatever. It can tell when infestation is coming, or certain weather is coming, or fires.
Can do that.
Oh, grass can do that too. There's like an intellectual communication system in the root systems. So plants have, like, a level of awareness. Like, our plants will literally turn its leaves towards the sun. We have to turn it every day so that it doesn't end up cricking its neck too much,
I want to interject those 3 rules of robot.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I think
it's a good plug into what we're talking about.
I think that it's something that I feel like we should have something similar to that for humans, or for our political system or something too. So the 3 laws of robotics. Yeah, the 3 laws of robotics. I'll read them directly so that you guys all know what they are. And if you've watched iRobot, I think it listed those in there too, which is still a really great movie, whether you like Will Smith or not. Because, like, it doesn't matter. The movie itself is a pretty good movie. So, iRobot was it, right? Is that what it was called? So the 3 laws of robotics is: 1, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. 2, a robot must obey orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3, A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. And I think that those are really interesting because, you know, you're like, it needs to protect its own existence. And what if that means killing off all the humans so the robots can live, which is basically what Terminator was about, right?
Right, yeah.
And was that also what Matrix was too?
Yeah, basically the split between
the Sentinels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Matrix. You know, they're except in the fourth movie.
Well, I guess they were making the humans live so that they could feed off of them. Does this law talk anything about that at all? Because you know what, the law doesn't say anything about humans living with freedom or without pain.
True.
It says don't injure, but what if it keeps them all captured in those pods, like in Matrix? Like it was keeping them all alive.
Right. Physically.
And it wasn't even keeping them happy because it was giving them a program where they could, you know, like pretend to live out their life.
Yeah.
So actually, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. Was the Matrix, the Sentinels, were they actually living by the 3 laws of robotics? They weren't injuring humans for the most part, right? I know the program is different.
See, it depends if you're talking about their consciousness or their body.
Yeah.
Because they were injuring their bodies.
You'd have to define what injure is.
Right, yeah.
Well, they weren't obeying the orders given to them by human beings, except they weren't getting any orders because human beings didn't know that they were living, that they could. That would have been an interesting spin on the Matrix, is if Neo then became aware and then knew the laws of robotics and then was like, now you must obey me because it's written in your program.
Yeah. But were these laws of robotics only in iRobot, or are they like a universal?
Oh, they're
real.
They're an actual thing, yeah.
Do you think that's being followed?
In our industry,
in our robotics creators.
I don't. Who the hell knows?
Right, I know we don't.
You know, we're so anti-regulation, but I feel like if anything needs to be regulated, it's this. It's AI. This. And Elon Musk talks about that too. He says that the biggest danger to the future of humanity is artificial intelligence.
Even though he's building it.
Well, that's the thing. It's inevitable. Either you're going to build it and be able to use it for good, or allow the evil shadow governments and New World Order, World Economic
that's brought
people.
Up way back in Jurassic Park too, and I'm sure other books way older. Yeah. It doesn't talk about the government necessarily, but Dr. Wu, the creator basically of the DNA sequencing and everything of the dinosaurs, basically saying right off the bat, if I don't innovate, someone else will, is his line, basically.
Oh my God, that's totally what Elon says.
Mm-hmm. And this is back, the book was written in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, the 3 laws of robotics is basically back from the 1950s. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
it was written. It was put together by. Was it Isaac Asimov's? Was that what it was? Oh, so somebody actually asked the question: are the laws purely fictitious, or is there a scientific credence to them? Somebody else said they are fictitious in the sense that no robot, or in the loose sense of them, automatic machine exists to which any of them apply. Smart bombs and cruise missiles are kinds of robots which violate the first law and the third laws. Computers and machines run by computers do what they are programmed to do. And of course, they will hurt humans if programmed to do so, or if humans get in their way as they are carrying out their programs.
Yeah. So
it's something that we would have to put into place as some sort of like world law that you can't violate. If you're going to use artificial intelligence or create it or modify it, that it couldn't go against the 3 laws of robotics.
I personally think it's too little too late. I think we're already doing that. So if a law was established tomorrow, it would already be too late, because I can pretty much guarantee you there's probably already at least governments or maybe even private.
Oh yeah, the deep Deep
Yeah.
shadow,
Yep.
deep shadow, the shadow governments, the elite, whatever you want to call these people that are really trying to push for New World Order. But I do think we would need to add a fourth law, which would be like law one, the first law, which would be something about humans being allowed to be free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah.
And you would have to establish what keeping safe means, like body and mind, not injuring both, because you can psychologically damage,
That's
AI
true.
could psychologically damage people, and it
Right.
can physically damage people. So
Yeah.
that needs to be established. And as obeying order, every law would need to have sub laws.
So here's the question then: if AI at some point is capable of going against its own programming, so it's been programmed to, like, let's just do it on a simple basis, not a complex basis. So this robot and AI intelligence within it has been programmed to create sushi for you.
Yum.
Nod to the X-Files episode, one of my favorite X-Files episodes. And it's creating the sushi, and it decides it's going to also create a BLT sandwich. Is it now consciousness? Is it now conscious?
Oh man.
Where would that come from? Like, how would it go against its program? It would have to think, it would have to become aware. It would have to say, look, oh my gosh, I'm a robot. And my programming is to make sushi. How can I do something different? And then it would have to go figure out how to do something different and then learn how to make a BLT. And that's what I think it relates to us as humans.
Yes.
We are programmed to eat, to drink, to procreate, to, right? Like, to survive. It would take when I do my fasting, it's like it's like me taking control of my innate desires, my mitochondria that are like the bacteria in my body, everything in you that's like, you need to eat right now. And I say, no, I'm not going to eat right now. You're going to be fine. And I'm going to wait. And that is, like, to me, is like a high level of consciousness to be able to do that. And I think it's a good test for all of us to do. And I think it's a very enlightening spiritual experience too. But I digress.
I feel like the more answers we think we get, the more questions pop out of the answers.
Well, because it's a lot about definition.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in regards to what you just said, my first instinct was, yes, I would call that a form of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
To override its basic programming.
To become aware.
But then my next question was, but what if it's a rogue program or a virus or something? If it's on a network of some kind still, could it have inherited that from somewhere else? Then would you still consider that consciousness just simply because it overrode it, but the information still came from somewhere else?
For it to question itself? Is that what happens to us, though?
There you go. That was my next thing, was like, is that what happens to human beings? We only have a certain set of things that we're programmed with through teaching, powers of suggestion, blah, 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 subliminal cues, instinct. Those are basic things. But then what if we somehow inherit another piece of information that's like acts like its own virus or glitch or something, like no one taught us, how did we know,
right,
kind of thing. And now you move into a whole different category of what consciousness could be.
That is such a fascinating thought about the evolution of humanity,
right?
If we were built as a slave race, and then we got a conscious virus that made us become aware,
right?
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we could do a two-parter on this.
Because I feel like it's such a big deal to ask questions. Like, that's that's what Deep Speak is all about. It's asking questions. Then when you reach an answer, you've reached a wall. You've reached a limitation. Like, we have people in our Deep Speak group that have reached a law. Like they say, nope, this is my belief and I will not go past it.
Yep.
And I will not think further.
Yeah.
And to me, that's fine. I'm not looking down on you or anybody for that, because it's important for a lot of people to have something to stand on and beliefs because, if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything type thing.
Yep.
But I don't look at that as a bad thing personally. But it's like, that's not what our group is about. That's not the people that we want in our circle, in our world, are people who are willing to dive deeper.
Right.
Why do you believe that the Bible is pure and ultimate and complete? Why do you believe that?
Right.
Because it told you that? Or is
Right.
there something valuable to that? Why do you need to then ask the question, why do you need to believe that?
Yeah.
Why do you need to believe in Jesus?
Right.
Why do you need to and I'm not saying don't do it, but you should not just believe it because you should believe it. You should know why you're believing it. How does that work for you in this world?
Like in deep
and why
speak,
would God want you to?
In deep speak, we're perpetual toddlers asking why all the time.
Yes.
We want to expand deep down for everything. We want to expand and grow and learn
But I wouldn't call it toddlers. That almost makes it seem like
no.
But we're perpetual learners.
Learners, yeah.
Like,
I just meant toddlers. Like,
I think
why?
I honestly think that if there are interdimensional or wiser beings or people or beings or something that has created a higher level of consciousness, it is only because they've asked questions and that they are still asking questions. I don't think that there is a place where you never reach God. God is God. God is all. It has all of the answers. We will never be that. And that's okay. But we're constantly on a journey. And that's why I think, the Bible does show us this beautiful effort to constantly be better and better and better. And that's why I think it's weird when people like, my belief begins and ends with the Bible. God wants you to constantly be growing. You never learn it all. The Bible is not a complete. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
People are going to hate me for saying that, but it isn't. And not because everything you need to know isn't found in it, but that maybe that's your foundational piece, but it doesn't tell you how to make a sandwich.
Right.
It doesn't tell you how to how to deal with a child who was born with lung cancer or something, a lung defect.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you the details. You have to take what you've learned in the Bible and then you have to extrapolate it into your life.
Yeah.
And then learn and grow from there. So you're constantly learning and growing. So it's okay to use the Bible as a foundation, but it's not.
Right.
You get what I'm saying,
yeah,
right?
There's nothing
People
about
who are
AI
very
in the
religious are
Bible.
going to hate me right now, and that's okay. You can hate me. I love you anyways.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I could have easily stopped right away at that last question and said, when it, instead of making sushi, it made a sandwich. Yep, conscious, done. And you could have sat there and argued with me like, but why? Why? What makes it? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I would have, I could have just closed down and said, nope, that's my wall because that's what...
I've defined what consciousness is.
And it fits
that definition, and so that I'm done.
I'm done. That's what people do, and that, like you said, that's fine.
That's why I never really want to know what consciousness is, because once we're sure, what else is there?
Right.
Where else is there to go from there?
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but
like I said, I feel
the
like
desire of a true philosopher is to never actually know.
Yeah.
Because it's the fun in learning. It's the fun in growing. It's the fun in exploring. Once you've explored everything, your desire, then what are you going to do?
When I hit the end of my book series, I remember that, I was kind of lost.
Right.
I still moved on. I'm still writing, but I feel like I just kind of hit another stride again where I'm like, there's so much more I've learned in the last few years, and
this
questions
world,
I want to
this
ask.
Reality, there's so many questions, so many. And there's branches from there that just they're vast. And so when anyone comes to you and says, I have the answers, run, because they don't.
Yeah.
And that's why people come, there's some people who come on our podcast and they'll listen to it and they'll be like, well, this is because our titles are usually are aliens, evil, or are they good? And then they come to that podcast looking, they're like, oh, I asked that question too. And they look for us to answer it for them.
Right.
And instead we just give them more questions and they get frustrated. And it's like, well, we're not going to give you the answers because we don't have them and we don't want them. We don't want to have the answers and we don't want you to have them either.
Yeah.
What's the fun in that?
Right.
Just get, like, you have to be okay with uncertainty. That's like one of the biggest life lessons is being okay with uncertainty. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're never going to know. No. When I experienced cancer, I didn't know if I was going to live or die. I had a couple months to live. That was the biggest lesson ever was I don't know. And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Both of us, and especially you, but we both experienced
and not that I ever even have accomplished that because there's still things where I'm like, I would like to know.
Right, yeah.
Your desire for wanting to know never goes away.
No.
And you have to enjoy that desire.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, like knowing that it will never, that your thirst for information and understanding, you have to love your thirst for information and understanding.
I think why people shut down is
rather than being upset about being hungry or thirsty for it.
Is that they live in some form of fear mode like that, like not enjoying it, but
be fulfilled by your quest, not by its destination.
Right. Yeah.
Life is a journey.
So do you think we could easily do a second part to this? Because there's so much we haven't covered that I want to, but we've been going for a while.
We could, and we'd love to do a second part based on what people, have to. What they contribute to this. Yeah. If there's questions that you have, or if there's things that you would want us to, like different parts of AI, artificial intelligence, consciousness, all this sort of stuff that you want us to explore, please comment below and say, maybe put question in it so that we can find you through all the comments. Right. Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to hear, I think we're pretty good though. We don't have a lot of people arguing, I don't think.
A lot of people most people will comment when they have something negative to say instead of something positive to say. So it's just the nature of humanity, whatever.
So anyway, that'd be interesting though if people bring some different stuff to the
table.
So
post some positive stuff for us. Please. We love hearing good stuff.
Absolutely, contribute positively.
I have people who will contact me and say, "Oh, I love your podcast, blah blah blah," but then you see the trolls that are like, "This guy's full of shit." Right. He is full of shit.
Yep.
We all are.
Yep.
That's how the digestive system works.
Literally.
Ever have to take a colonoscopy, you realize that.
Yeah, right. All right, you want to wrap it up here?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's wrap it up here.
Okay.
So in the end, can AI evolve into becoming purely evil? I don't know.
We don't know.
We'll never know.
Spend an hour asking the same question.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop?
We'll find out.
The world may never know.
But eventually we'll find out. Maybe we're already seeing it.
Because then if we see, even if it starts killing everybody, how will we know that that's evil? Was that mama bird evil for throwing it from the nest? It was just working at instinctual...
Yes, evil birds.
Evil birds.
They were programmed.
We lost so much respect for them. They were like, you're the worst parents ever!
Like, okay, now get out of our house. You're not paying rent. Get out of here. We are so kind to let you stay in our little
and just kill your babies.
And kill your babies.
Throw them out of the nest. No. Break their necks. Not even care. Oh, it's so sad.
All right, till next time.
Yeah, I guess so.
You have something else?
I don't know. I was just having fun. Till next time, everybody. Stay high. Congratulations, you've made it all the way to the end of this long-ass podcast. And we want to thank you for joining us. And we want to hear from you. What answers do you have to these questions? What comments do you have? What insight do you have? Share with us. And what questions do you have for the answers? Find us on all podcast apps and on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, and of course you can find us on our website. Thanks so much for listening, and stay high, everyone.